We've learned a bit about memory, how we remember, why we remember certain things, and where memories are encoded. Now we need to think about why forgetting happens. Forgetting can happen for many reasons, but they all boil down to three main problems. Poor encoding, in other words, you didn't memorize it in the first place. Poor storage, because storage decays over time. Or poor retrieval, in other words, you don't know where you put it, so you can't find it. As I said, encoding failure happens when we don't move an item from working into long-term memory. Sometimes it's because we don't pay enough attention. Consider these pennies. Which one is real? Can you tell? Most people can't. They know what a penny looks like. They can tell it if they see it, but they've never looked closely enough to really know the details. Pause if you want a chance to guess. The real penny is A. The second major problem, as I said, is storage decay. Retention of information learned in, say, a high school Spanish class drops off pretty quickly after graduation. Many vocabulary words disappear if they are not used. However, as you can see from this graph, what is still retained by 5 years tends to last for a long time. And in fact, sometimes, based on tests, some of the language actually even comes back. Retrieval failure, or the inability to get information out of long-term storage even when it is there, is a third reason for memory failure. Have you ever tried to come up with a word or a name and it was on the tip of your tongue but you just couldn't quite remember it? That's a retrieval failure. Often with a little priming, like being given the first letter, you can come up with it. It was there all along, but for some reason it was hard to access. Other issues can also interfere with our ability to remember. Interference can prevent us from remembering. Proactive interference, for example, French learned earlier in life, can interfere with memorizing Spanish words later. Retroactive interference can also happen. Learning Spanish later can make it harder to remember your French. Sleep can actually prevent retroactive interference. If you study the parts of the eye, then sleep for a while before studying for your math test, you are more likely to remember the parts of the eye that you learned. Sigmund Freud believed that repression, which is a defense mechanism to protect us against painful memories, can also cause forgetting. He believed people buried bad memories, like child abuse, in order to be able to survive. Elizabeth Loftus, who did the Lost in the Mall experiment, and other modern psychologists also dispute the idea of repressed memories. Loftus finds most trauma survivors obsess on their experiences rather than forgetting them. She argues that individuals in therapy are sometimes encouraged, whether intentionally or not, to create false memories of traumatic experiences. We know from research that individuals sometimes do construct false memories based just on the way questions are framed. In one study, not sure what happened to the study. Here it is. In one study, eyewitnesses were asked to reconstruct memories of an auto accident they had observed. Some witnesses were asked how fast two cars were going when they hit each other. Others were asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other. A week later, the second group was more than twice as likely to report seeing broken glass at the crime scene, which wasn't actually there. Here's a graph showing it. Okay, the group B, who was asked how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other, reported, 32% of them reported seeing broken glass that wasn't there. Some other types of amnesia or forgetting do exist as well. Go back to HM. HM suffered a type of amnesia called anterograde amnesia. He could remember items from long ago which were stored in his long-term memory, but he could not form new memories going forward. Some individuals who suffer concussions or other injuries have something called retrograde amnesia. That means they forget memories that preceded their injury, memories that were never put in long-term storage, but they have no trouble forming new memories going forward. Finally, there's what we call source amnesia. That is when you can remember something, like a face you've seen or a fact you were told, but you can't remember when or why you learned it. Often people misattribute something a friend told them and credit it to an expert. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking.